welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is one of my favourites, and I just really wanted to get this one on my channel. I think you guys, if you don't already know this story, will enjoy it. Please do let me know in the comments below. Again guys, please do like and share, help me build this channel. I can't thank you enough for the support over the last few weeks, and let's keep growing. Tonight's story is entitled True Chickasaw National Park Encounter. Let's get straight into that. I was 20 years old. I had left home when I was 16 years old and decided to explore the world and see what I could find. I have been here in Texas and Louisiana most of my life. I had been raised in Louisiana for the most part, and I went to Missouri, then to New York, California, anywhere in the United States I could have decided to go. Finally, I decided to go home. Well, up until then, I had been staying in Oklahoma, when I received a phone call from my mum saying that she might be dying from cancer. I came to find out later that she actually wasn't. She just wanted me home. You see, I was hitchhiking through Oklahoma and was near the Chickasaw National Park. In 2 days, I hadn't been able to catch a ride, sticking out my thumb doing all that, and nobody stopped. So I said, oh well, and then pitched a tent in the national park. I decided to go explore some and followed the paved road until I got to the camping area. There was a fire pit off a little ways from the road, and it was a clear area. There were picnic tables, so I decided that's where I would be going to camp that night. I decided to explore a little bit and followed a deer trail into the woods. As I was walking, I looked to the left on my ground, and there was a hawk laying there with no head, as if it had been burned off. An eerie feeling came over me, but I just brushed it away as me being paranoid. I'd already had some paranormal experiences, but never came across one where it involved animals, so I carried on and walked away. I went back to the area that I had decided to pitch my tent that night. I sat there until it started getting dark, and I set my tent up. I left the tent flap open because it was a very cool afternoon. Finally, night came. The street lamps that were along the paved road came on. The lights were actually good enough to where I could actually read a book at the time. I was reading Anne Rice, Queen of the Damned. As the time went on, I started to get sleepy. I reached up to my zip-up tent flap and looked over at the street light. Directly in front of my tent, standing there directly under the street light, was a creature as tall as the street light. Well, maybe not as tall, but maybe a couple of inches directly underneath it. Its hair was very, very long, and it looked a little bit hunched. I couldn't see any eyes because the hair seemed to be there in front of its face. It was all in black as far as I could tell, but what little skin seemed to stick out was as white as chalk. And what little bit of skin I could see was its hands, which were clearly past its knees. The hands were just hanging there. Its nails were black, very black, so dark it seemed to absorb the light. It just stood there, and it seemed as if the air surrounding it was vibrating. There was a type of, I don't know, static. It seemed in the air. Now, don't get me wrong, I was very startled and afraid. I didn't know what this was. Then suddenly, underneath the hair, I could see white start to show, and it was as if the creature was smiling at me. It stood there for a very, very long time, and finally, as I was looking at it, something came over me. Now, you may not believe me. You might say this story isn't true, but I know that it happened. I know that it happened to me. I grew angry. I grew very, very angry. I felt a rage inside of me, and it grew very strong. I stared the creature down. I got out of my tent, stood up, and looked straight at it and said, I am not afraid of you. You have no power over me. It seemed to make the creature laugh, and all that did was make me even more angry. I stood my ground again and told it, I am not afraid of you, and you have no power over me. I stood there staring at it for what seemed like the longest time, white hot rage growing inside me, when all of a sudden I heard a loud snap behind me. I turned around quick to find out what the noise was, and there was nothing there. And then I thought suddenly, that thing's probably behind me now. I turned around quick again and looked towards the streetlight, and it was no longer there. I bundled up my sleeping bag after it disappeared. That night, as I slept, I had a horrible nightmare of the creature standing over me, laughing with a toothy grin. The next morning, I packed up my stuff and looked towards the streetlight where the thing had been standing. There was blood on the street lamp pole. I had no longer had that anger that I had felt the night before, and I was very scared. So I gathered up all my stuff and got out there as quick as I could. I headed to the highway, stuck out my thumb, and thankfully someone picked me up. I have never been back to the Chickasaw Park since that night. I never plan on going back there ever again. A word of warning: be careful where you camp. You never know what you might come across. You might not believe what I have written, but it did happen, and it happened to me. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and if anybody may know what the creature could have been, comments are very welcome. If anybody might know what it was that caused me to have that rage that I had felt come over me, that anger that I had felt come through, are definitely welcome. As soon as I get the chance, I'll write some more of my experiences. Thank you. Okay guys, that completes the story tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Please do let me know in the comments down below. Please, again, do like and share. And remember folks, be safe, not sorry.